Bear scoring an exclusive interview with former President Donald Trump and grilling the GOP frontrunner on everything from his indictment to the 2024 race.
The only way NARA could ever get this back, would be please, could we have it back?
And they
please,
asked for that.
because they have no.
They did ask for it.
No, and
they said, "Can you give the documents back?"
And we were talking.
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
which
back.
they've never done before.
Right.
And
but why not just hand them over then?
Because I had boxes. I want to go through the boxes and get all my personal things out. I don't want to hand that over to NARA yet. And I was very busy, as you've sort of seen.
Yeah, but according to the indictment, you then tell this aide to move to other locations after telling your lawyers to say you'd fully complied with the subpoena when you hadn't.
But before I send boxes over, I have to take all of my things out. These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things.
They say that America is divided politically, and we kind of agree. There's the dumb, and then there's us. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that too harsh for the little snowflakes? This is Right, Left, and Center. This is Right, Left, and Center. No matter what's going on in today's news, politics, social, environment, culture, we're talking about it unabashedly. Real, raw, direct, and funny. Let's rock. This is Right, Left, and Center. And this is your host, Will Jackson.
Hello, folks. It's good to be back for another week of Left, Right, and Center. We're going to talk about this today, or this week. We're going to talk about Trump. We're going to talk about Kevin McCarthy, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert. Yeah. Colorado, I don't know what the hell y'all gonna do with this chick. Man, you just can't make this stuff up. And we also gonna talk about Hunter Biden and the Biden family. I think the Orange Man actually signed his own jail warrant. For those who support Trump, I'm just here to tell you, his ass is going to jail. Not to mention his co-conspirators. But we're going to dive in all that. And oh, by the way, Trump will leave Nuda out to dry. That's going to happen. But before we dive into this, I just, first of all, that interview that was done by Brett Baier on Fox, it was, and actually, I'm going to tell you something. I actually watched that interview, and I'm going to tell you that Brett Baier did a hell of a job holding Trump's feet to the fire. He held his feet to the fire so much that this jackass couldn't even put his shoes on after the interview. He was embarrassed. And I'm going to tell you something. That just goes to show how ignorant this man is, how unfit. People are talking about Joe Biden. We'll dive into that in a second, but people are talking about Joe Biden being ineffective and incoherent president. That's farther from the truth. That is farther from the truth. Joe Biden has served his country well before Lauren Boebert was even thought of. Well before Marjorie Taylor Greene was thought of. In fact, them two actually started out as a sperm on the bed sheet before anything else. And for those of you who actually have sensitive ears, I'm going to tell you now, this is a R-rated show. This week, I'm giving you fair warning. So if you don't want to hear what I got to say, and you find it being a little bit too sensitive to your ears, my suggestion is that you go ahead and skip ahead a few seconds in between some of the nasty stuff I have to say. But, and I'm going to tell you something. Chris Christie actually said it best about the Orange Man. Okay? See, he is an attorney's worst nightmare. I mean, Jack Smith doesn't have to do anything because Trump is doing it for him and his team. That's what's happening. See, Trump is actually convicting himself. There's no way around it. And yes, if they push it out, during the elections or whatever, and I know that whatever the hell that judge that was appointed by Trump, whatever the hell her name is, down in Florida District, Southern Florida District, even if she, Judge Cannon, that's her name, even if that's pushed out into March of 2024, he's still going to go to court. Okay? And if Judge Cannon even tries to push it out even further, well, Jack Smith, if you read the indictment, as I did, and I don't know if I was reading it wrong or reading it backwards, but his other estate up north, okay, they can bring charges, drop charges in that district. And I guarantee you that is what Jack Smith is going to do. That's going to happen. Trump is his worst enemy. Very worst enemy. You cannot make this up. Listen to this you know what? I don't even think I can play another excerpt of Trump because he couldn't even say Merrick Garland's name correctly. And he just, All right, let me play a little excerpt of Chris Christie, and we'll talk a little bit more about this on the other side.
Documents back was because he's just so very busy, and he didn't have time to respond to a grand jury subpoena because he needed to get his golf shirts and pants out of the box. I mean, does anybody in America believe this?
Apparently so, right?
Well,
yes.
Look, I think the problem is going to be for him over time is that people are just not going to buy it. And when you think about how many days of golf he's played since he left office, maybe he could have skipped a couple of rounds of golf and gone through the boxes to respond to a subpoena from a grand jury. Look, the problem for Donald Trump in all of this is his own conduct. He's his own worst enemy. None of this would have happened to him or to the country if he had just returned the documents.
And Michael Cohen said that on many shows. And this, thank you, by the way, CBS, for having Chris Christie on. Now, you may not like Chris Christie, or you may not care about Chris Christie, and you may not want to vote for Chris Christie, but at the end of the day, he's telling the truth. Now, he's a career prosecutor, okay? And he governed in a blue state. And he was able to work across the aisle. He was able to bring the Republicans and Democrats from his state to work on some legendary legislation and get things passed. Unlike Trump and the Trump fanatics that are currently in the House. You know, like Lauren Boebert. So I'm going to play something that's in regards to her talking about free speech. And then I'm going to tell you what I have free for her.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I yield 3 minutes to the gentlewoman from Colorado, Ms. Boebert.
The gentlewoman from Colorado has yielded 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Free speech is under attack here in America, the free United States of America. Putin is a thug. Yes, China is a threat, but nothing, and I mean nothing, will bring America to its knees like the removal of our free speech, the cornerstone for our constitutional republic. America without free speech is like a phone without a charger. It's only a matter of time before it dies. Attacks on free speech should not be seen with a partisan lens. Any attack on free speech is an attack on every American who gave their life so that you and I could live freely, so that you and I could express our thoughts, beliefs, and opinions without fear of retribution or persecution. Mr. Chair, the sad reality is the Biden administration has decided to collude with big tech to silence the voice of the American people under the guise of misinformation. We saw in our committee hearings that it was demonstrated that the FBI colluded with big tech to silence Americans' free speech. And the gentleman from New York says, well, it's Russia and China who are going to interfere with our elections. No. Democrats are doing just fine on that, their own. When they have the federal government working for them and their agenda to push that forward and silence Americans' free speech, they're doing just fine with election interference. We have seen the polls that said if Americans knew about the Hunter Biden laptop from hell, the election outcome would have been different, and y'all wanted that silenced so greatly. So now let me ask you, without this, we certainly have the Constitution. I would love to get my colleagues on the other side of the aisle a copy, but who decides what is true or false? I certainly don't trust the federal government to make that distinction. They were wrong about the Hunter Biden laptop. They were wrong about the vaccine mandates, about masks, about the Wuhan lab leak, wrong about shutting down churches and schools and businesses, and they're dead wrong to use their positions to attack Americans' free speech. For the current resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the only thing harder than climbing a flight of stairs, riding a bicycle, reading a teleprompter seems to be telling the truth. Free speech isn't just for kind speech or true speech or widely accepted speech. It is for all speech, and it is worth fighting for. And I want to thank my friend and colleague and chairman of the Oversight and Accountability Committee, Mr. Comer, for his work to preserve free speech in America.
Okay, so here I'm going to exercise my free speech. So, I'm going to give you a trigger warning. So here's your trigger warning. So I advise you to go ahead and forward 15 seconds if you don't want to hear this. But for those of you who don't have sensitive ears, stick around. You might find this interesting. Okay, so I'm going to talk about free speech. All right, so she wants to talk about the great Joe Biden and how he cannot walk up steps or he falls on the stage or, how he stutters. I mean, first of all, the man is like damn near 80-something years old. That's one. Two, I think he speaks rather well and rather elegantly, more than you. And not only that, he can complete a full sentence unlike you. And when you listen to Lauren Boebert's conversations and that speech she gave at CPAC, and every time she seems to open up her mouth, she's utilizing that same free speech that us veterans fought for her to do that. And given that, she has the free speech to spew lies, even on our federal government floor, our house, not her house, not that bitch's house, our house. And so here's something free for Lauren Boebert, okay? And Colorado, make sure she gets this message. Lauren Boebert, here's something free for you. A dick in your mouth.
Have you been looking for a podcast that takes you beyond the headlines? A show that challenges you. A show that's real, raw, and unapologetic. Then you've found your new home. Right, left, and center. Right, left, and center. News, the environment, immigration, politics, the criminal justice system, and everything in between. Join Will Jackson every week, your personal guide to understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Listen everywhere podcasts are available. You're listening to Left, Right, and Center, your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
Welcome back. She probably got many of those in her mouth. It's hard to believe that she actually has 4 kids. I mean, seriously, somebody should call Child Protective Services on her ass, because I'm going to tell you something. Why she has 4 kids in her house, and oh, by the way, remember her husband years ago actually pled guilty to exposing himself to women at a bowling alley that she was at, that she seen. Yeah, we're going to listen to you. In Colorado, you already know that she actually barely won her election. So Colorado, please put a stick in it and get her ass out of office. Let's shut her ass down, just like the rest of them. Because, see, what's happening throughout this great America is that people are not focusing on the facts. They're not focusing on the facts. And people like Kevin McCarthy, the disgraced Jim Jordan, who this motherfucker is on my Sheldon list and will never get off. He's a piece of shit. His committee is fucked up. And you got, and they just don't have their facts. And see, everybody on that committee, in fact, all them damn Republicans, mega Republicans or extreme Republicans or wherever the hell they want to call themselves, they really want to do investigations. For what? They want to investigate the investigators? First of all, none of them can hold a finger to Jack Smith and his team. I mean, right now, Trump lawyers are probably slicing their wrists right now. Not making fun of suicide, but you get my point. Because he's a total nightmare. I mean, this man has, let's see, he's got the insurrection investigation. He's got the document investigation, which he just basically sealed his fate on that one. And then he also has the money for whatever it was in New York with Alvin Bragg. Then he's got the Letitia James. And I'm going to tell you something, Fonnie Willis have not even got her claws into his ass. And so my question is to Mike McCarthy, Jim Jordan, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Holt Green. My question, and I'm doing this under free speech, the one that bitch Lauren Boebert mentioned. And first of all, a hoe don't belong in Congress. They belong on the host roll. So she needs to go do that. Anyway, so all these investigations, and Fonnie Willis hasn't even got her claws into Trump's ass yet. So what are they going to do? They're going to keep investigating, not getting anything done for their constituents? Is that the way it's going to work? Is that what's going to happen? Because I'm going to tell you something. As you listen to these knuckleheads that are trying to continually support Trump, like, I don't know, let's say Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, y'all should be embarrassed. He too should have a dick in his mouth. He needs to sit in a corner somewhere and be the little bitch that he is, because Mr. Flip-Flop don't know what direction he wants to go. But back to these investigations that they keep talking about. They keep talking about freedom of speech. They keep talking about big tech and how the government is trying to focus on big tech, and the FBI is, first of all, the FBI, this is an organization that is tight. I mean, they don't do good things some of the time. They do great things all the time. And for people like Boebert to badmouth the FBI, that, you know what? I'm surprised they're not even throwing an investigation on their asses. Because some of the stuff that they're saying, in fact, I'm going to tell you something. It wouldn't be surprising that all this misinformation and this pointing the finger at Hunter Biden and the Biden family and other folks, I'm surprised that they're not even being sued. I'm surprised that the Capitol Police and DC Police and the Maryland police officers have not placed a law. These officers and their families who have been affected by January 6th have not filed a lawsuit against them. I encourage that to happen because their asses need to be bankrupt. Haul their asses into court as well. You know, they say that if you want to, if the local law enforcement does not charge somebody for a crime, and you have a lot of evidence that someone has done something to your loved one, then file a wrongful lawsuit and then get a deposition so all truths can come out. Because these bitches can sit there and say all they want to say in front of a camera. They can grandstand all they want to in front of a camera. But you put them motherfuckers under oath, I guarantee they'll tell the truth. And public record is a motherfucker, especially when you're being sued. So, Hunter Biden, you know what? I applaud what you've been doing over the past year, getting your life together. Okay? I applaud you for your mother and your father supporting you. I applaud the fact that President Joe Biden called you, left you a message, and said to you buddy, you need to get help. And we love you and we're here to support you. And that's it. And what did you do? You got help. And yet you've got people like Lauren Boebert sitting on the House floor instead of handling business, taking snapshots, pop shots at, drug addiction. That should say a lot to you folks in Colorado. When your elected congressional woman is in the people's house, making fun of someone who has a disease and is fighting it every day. I want you folks in Colorado to actually start thinking about this. Does she think that way about all of you folks? If you have someone who has a drug addiction, once again, it's free speech. See, Hunter Biden, I hope and pray that you let her know, because of what she's saying and the rhetoric that she's spewing out along with the rest of them, their speech is not free. They got to pay you for it. Just like Kevin McCarthy.
Can we talk a little bit about the Hunter Biden plea deal and your reaction?
My first reaction is it continues to show the two-tier system in America. If you are the president's leading political opponent, the DOJ tries to literally put you in jail and give you prison time. If you are the president's son, you get a sweetheart deal. Now, this does nothing to our investigation. It actually should enhance our investigations because the DOJ should not be able to withhold any information now, saying that because of pending investigation, they should be able to provide Chairman Comer with any information that he requires.
But Mr. Speaker, this is a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney that's held over into this administration. Why won't you accept
It's done.
This is a thorough investigation and to just accept it on its merits, given the person who investigated?
It was a thorough investigation?
I'm asking you.
But I'm asking you, so you believe it's a thorough investigation?
I'm asking you.
Do you think it's equal and fair that a political opponent is going to be given jail time, but a presidential son, and if you compare this to other individuals in America that have these same accusations against them, same crimes that they had been guilty of, that they were proposed to have 10 years another time period, I think that's a difference in justice.
Speaker
What about
McCarthy,
the Trump attorney? What about the fact that it's a Trump attorney?
Speaker McCarthy, you said this has no impact on the investigations from House Republicans. So what can the American people expect from Republicans going forward?
Continue to follow whatever information leads us to. We've watched time and again. I mean, remember what we have found so far, that the president's family builds nothing, owns no offices, but we found out, lo and behold, even though the FBI tried to hold from us, that in a 1023 form, that people have said that they had to pay the president's family money for favors. We now found later, by suspicious activities through banks, how many American families have ever had that happen to them, but there's hundreds of them, that money has come from foreign entities into shell companies, moved to other shell companies by the president, and paid members of his family all the way down to grandchildren as well. How many families in America have that, where you literally build nothing, you make no product, you have no offices, but you make millions of dollars from foreign entities, and they pay almost numerous members in your family through shell companies. The minute the money comes in, moves to another shell company, which moves to the payment of a family.
Okay, before we even go any further, so the last time I checked, there is a financial form disclosure that every president except Trump had to deliver, had to provide. And so there is no, the FBI and the DOJ, they did not find anything that tied President Joe Biden to Hunter Biden. Okay? We're talking about, we're talking apples and oranges here. Okay, we're talking about there is no weaponization. We're talking about somebody who had thousands upon thousands of classified documents in 2 locations within the eastern border of this United States. And not only that, this individual got on TV on Fox with Brett Baer and basically said, I had these documents. I could not declassify them. I showed this and this is that and this. And he basically drove his attorneys insane to have Chris Christie to come back and say, hey, you are a prosecutor's dream. You're going to make it easy for the prosecutor, Jack Smith, to prosecute you and convict you. That's a difference between someone who has tax problems. Oh, by the way, I didn't hear anything about McCarthy saying anything about Hunter Biden paying back those taxes, which he has done. And then to mention about a firearm, which, if you don't know exactly what that's all about, is that while Hunter Biden was on his drug binge, and I pray that he continues to fight that, he got a firearm under fictitious information. That would apply to any of us. We cannot go buy a firearm no matter if we're an alcoholic or whether we're a drug user. If you're sober, you cannot provide false information to obtain a firearm. Of course, the Republicans forget about that. They're not trying to actually focus on gun laws. They're more focused on some of the stuff that they can't do anything about. Okay? They cannot handcuff. They cannot convict. They cannot do any of that. The only thing they can do is waste taxpayers' money by continual actions on things that just don't matter. So let's just do a quick recap. The DOJ did their investigation. The FBI did their investigation. They turned it over to the DOJ. The DOJ reviewed it. They said, okay, so there's nothing else going on that the rest of these yahoos are crying about. They've been investigated. A Trump-appointed prosecutor has followed this through. He was held over to actually follow this through. And we're not even going to get on the Durham report. We'll talk about that on a different day. But here we have it, where you have no other information. So Hunter Biden pled guilty to the tax fraud counts. The money is paid back. He's gone through a year of rehab and he's been clean. Then you have a former 2-time impeached, disgraced, 2-time indicted, along with lost a lawsuit about sexual harassment, former orange president of these United States, who we are embarrassed to even say that you're the 45th president, hold documents and will not plead guilty. Will not plead guilty. Will not own up to what is being done. So we're talking apples and oranges here, Republicans, Kevin McCarthy. We're talking about taxes, which is paid back. Also an investigation on whatever laptop they're talking about, and also foreign money being, put through Biden's grandchildren and Biden's bank account and all this other stuff. I'm going to tell you something. You guys, you Republicans, you are a walking lawsuit waiting to happen. That's what you are. That's what you are. And just to prove it, I'm going to play some more of Kevin McCarthy.
That raises questions that I think has to be answered. And that's where the investigation continues to lie, to look into these where the president said he had nothing to do with, but we had other accusations and information that continues to unfold.
We've heard a lot about two-tiered systems of justice. Is it only equal application if Hunter Biden or President Biden is indicted as well? I mean, the charges are different. The circumstances are different.
Well, okay, that's a very good question, because the question is it equal justice? So you have one leading opponent.
Okay, equal justice. You have one leading opponent. It's McCarthy. I hope that you have rewound what they're playing. It's a good question. A two-tiered justice system for two separate information. Tax. California. This is a second Speaker of the House from California, and Gavin Newsom kind of threw shade at him, which I think Gavin Newsom was being kind of nice about it. But nevertheless, there is simply no way you can mitigate tax from espionage. Or, in fact, there was that young man who was actually indicted and faced arraignment this week. Okay, you want to talk about two-tiered justice systems. Here's your two-tiered justice systems. An airman who published information, classified information. You had another soldier, or a female soldier, I think it was, who actually published or sent over classified information to bring awareness to what's going on. And she's currently in jail. This guy's about to go to jail, and he's also locked up. But yet your orange guy is still walking around with a bad hairdo and getting on TV and still running his mouth about the classified information he had. I'm just saying. Of
the current president that is now indicted is supposed to do jail time. You have a president's son that the investigation went on for a very long time, that now has to do no jail time. But you have can I finish the answer to your question? But now you have a sitting president that's in charge of the DOJ that has the same accusations against his political opponent, where he has classified documents, but his is even worse because it goes all the way back when he was a senator.
Wrong answer. See, this is what is that saying? If you're a lawyer, which he's not, if the facts are not on your side, kick and scream. I mean, the facts are not on their side. They don't have facts. They can't produce facts. What they are doing is they're producing liable lawsuits for false information and defamation of character. That's what they're doing. And I'm not an attorney, but I actually looked that up, and I'm kind of just like going down the line here as I'm hearing these knuckleheads run off at the nut rest about this. Okay? And so this is what they're doing. See, they're setting themselves up for failure. In fact, they're basically handing 2024 to the Democratic Party. Not only do I predict that the Democratic Party will win the House and the Senate, but also the presidency. And all you legitimate Republicans out there, good Republicans who knows how to fight a good fight, who knows how to do a proper investigation, and also knows how the Republican Party should be ran, just like, let's say, a legendary airman who was shot down, who Trump said that he didn't like him because he got captured. You know, the Honorable John McCain. or the Honorable Liz Cheney. Okay, these are Republicans. Okay, and I've already said it. If Liz Cheney put her hat in the ring, I'm voting for Liz Cheney. Because you know something? She is a good person. She focuses on the legitimacy of our government. She don't bring childish shit to the table like this guy.
Now, none of you have ever asked me this question. As a member of Congress and a member of the Gang of Eight, can I ever remove classified documents from the SCIF? The answer is no. But why does the sitting president today have classified documents all the way back to when he was a senator? And if he's been in office this long, why hasn't that investigation ended up? How are you so fast to do an investigation of former President Trump, even though you're talking about presidential records that doesn't have a criminal statute to it and doesn't have a timeline when the papers come back, but you have a sitting president today that now has a son that gets a sweetheart deal, that now the president today, his top political opponent, is indicted and has potential jail time, and you have the same problem yourself, but there's no movement on that. So I think that to all Americans seems as though it's a two system, and that's what's wrong. When you look out this window and you see the Supreme Court, you see Lady Justice there. She's holding a scale, right? But also she has a blindfold on. So it shouldn't matter where you wait, whether you're a political opponent or not, it should be equal justice.
Got to stop there again. Do not bring the Supreme Court in this because we already know they're stacked. 1, 2, just this week again, and I think it's Kavanaugh whose ass is on the hot seat for flying from D.C. to Alaska for a fishing trip by a billionaire, and a round trip ticket is on a private plane was estimated to be about $100,000. I'm not gonna listen to this motherfucker anymore. This is getting crazy. This is getting so crazy. 2-tier system. Wow. Wow. More after this.
Have you been looking for a podcast that takes you beyond the headlines? A show that challenges you. A show that's real, raw, and unapologetic. Then you've found your new home. Right, left, and center. Right, left, and center. News, the environment, immigration, politics, the criminal justice system, and everything in between. Join Will Jackson every week, your personal guide to understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Listen everywhere podcasts are available. You're listening to Left, Right, and Center, your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
I'm on the Oversight Committee. We have been investigating the Biden family crimes over and over and over again, and we have all the bank records where we have direct evidence of tens of millions of dollars coming in from all these foreign countries directly into shell LLCs, and the Biden family members, Hunter Biden especially, getting paid millions and millions of dollars, and they want to bring stupid charges of misdemeanors for taxes and a gun charge. I think it's ridiculous.
So I have two follow-ups. One is just, do you think that the Oversight Committee is going to be pursuing any investigation beyond this now that this case is not an ongoing investigation? I wonder, maybe the DOJ, there's some information Oversight could subpoena.
Well, I think something to think about, and I plan on talking to Chairman Comer about it, is that now that this has happened, Hunter Biden can't plead the fifth. So I think we need to subpoena him in front of the Oversight Committee, and we need to have a little chat with Hunter Biden.
And just lastly, I've heard a number of Republicans talk about a two-tier justice system. This U.S. attorney in Delaware who was prosecuting Hunter Biden was a Trump appointee. how can you look at somebody who President Trump put in place and say that person is not treating?
I'll put it to you like this, because this is what the American people know. It might not make a lot of sense in Washington, because nothing makes sense in Washington. Bill Barr was also the Attorney General for the United States. Direct evidence and the proof about the $5 million bribe that went to Joe Biden as vice president. So I don't care if they're Trump appointed. I don't care if they were part of his former administration. Those people that have known about these Biden crimes and sold our country out, they should be held accountable too. So I don't give a crap about the attorney. I don't care. I really don't. It doesn't matter if they're Trump appointed. That's not the issue. The issue is we should be holding people accountable for their real crimes, not playing like, oh, look at Hunter Biden going along and getting along with the DOJ because he was a horrible drug addict back then when he made his little throwaway a gun in a trash can and his tax crimes. He has a lot bigger problems than those tax crimes. He committed all kinds of crimes, and that's what we're doing on the Oversight Committee. So I would love to see Hunter come on in and talk to us about it, because he can't plead the fifth anymore. You're welcome. Appreciate it.
You know, what's a shame is that she too don't have a dick in her mouth. I'm just saying. Because that's the only thing that really will shut her up. I mean, she too need to be on the whole straw. Because she's a trick and she's a tramp and she don't understand facts. They don't understand facts. Investigation was done by a Trump-appointed prosecutor who stayed over 2 years from the Trump administration to complete this, found there was nothing else but tax and a gun charge, and a charge on for having a gun, because he falsified the records to get that gun. That's it. We're talking about, once again, this is Georgia. Here's another one who just don't seem to understand this. Here's another one who you need to vote out of office. Okay? McCarthy needs to go. Marjorie Taylor Holt Green needs to go. Lauren Holt Bobart needs to go. They all need to go. And that bitch ass Jim Jordan from the state of Ohio, he needs to go. The bottom line is this. The Gang of Eight? What in the hell is a Gang of Eight? That should tell all you folks out there who are voting in 2024 how they actually view themselves as a gang who don't have facts, who don't want to acknowledge the facts. And so when you, wow, this, you can't make this up if you want to. In fact, I'll tell you what, Ohio and Ohio voters, those of you from Troy, Ohio, who are a Jim Jordan fan, let me play this. Let me play part of this for you, and then I'm going to play something else for you. And this is why Jim Jordan, although he is an attorney, he's not an attorney, and he's simple-minded and one-track minded. It's almost like an individual that's in management at your work. No matter what you say to him or her, they still can't fucking get it through their heads that they're fucking wrong, and they don't have a fucking clue. They don't have a fucking clue. Listen to this. Listen to him.
Chair is recognized for an opening statement. 3 years ago and 11 months, July 24th, 2019, Bob Mueller sat in this room, in that chair, and told this committee, no collusion, no conspiracy, no coordination between President Trump and Russia. None. What the Democrats say, we don't care. We're going to keep going after President Trump. In fact, they didn't even wait one day. The next day, the phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky became the basis for their impeachment. Republicans said maybe instead of the never-ending attacks on President Trump, maybe the country would be better off if we figured out how the whole false Trump-Russia narrative started. After 2.5 years of the Mueller investigation, 19 lawyers, 40 agents, $30 million, where they found nothing, maybe we should figure out how the whole lie started. And that's exactly what Mr. Durham has done.
And that's what Mr. Durham has done. So under questioning, this is what happened. The exchange between Honorable Ms. Jackson and Mr. Durham.
To recognize Ms. Jackson Lee.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You value the independence of a special counsel, do you not?
I do.
In a letter to Attorney General Garland submitting your report, you asked him to allow you to continue your investigation unencumbered. You said, "We want to thank you and your office for permitting our inquiry to proceed independently without interference, as you assured the members of the Judiciary Committee would be the case during your confirmation hearings to become Attorney General of the United States. You value your special counsel status. So it is accurate that Attorney General Garland let you proceed on your case as you wish. Is that true?"
That's true.
And yes or no, it was important to you that as a special counsel, your investigation was supposed to be independent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because special counsels and special attorneys are supposed to be independent, right?
Special counsel is.
Yes. And independent, they're supposed to be independent. Is that correct?
Special counsel is independent of the Attorney General's office.
Thank you. Why is that the case in your view?
So there can be some confidence on the part of people looking at the investigation that was done, decisions which were made.
Thank you. Special counsels and special attorneys are supposed to be, for the American public, to present the potential of a conflict of interest between the government and a sensitive investigation. By appointing a special counsel and attorney general is supposed to be finding an unbiased party to do the investigating. This was at a very high level. This was dealing with potential presidential candidates. This was dealing with Russia collusion and undermining the very fabric of the United States of America. And they are supposed to leave that person alone, as you commended Attorney General Garland for doing. So, unlike Attorney General Garland, Attorney General Barr was very involved in your investigation, wasn't he?
He was not involved when I became special counsel. Prior to that, I worked under the supervision of the Attorney General and Deputy.
He was very involved, was he not? Let me just bring you to this point. Barr established early on that he was very interested in your investigation. On June 8, 2018, he sent then Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein an unsolicited memo arguing that the Mueller investigation should not be able to force the president to submit to interrogation about obstruction. In his text message sending the memo, Barr wrote that he feels very deeply about some of the issues taking shape in the Mueller matter. How often did you meet with Attorney General Barr in 2019?
Before I was special counsel, maybe, with him himself, maybe every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something of that sort.
And then after?
Sometimes more frequently.
And then after?
After it became, I had been appointed special counsel, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that I saw him, but I didn't meet with him on
a lot.
Investigation. No, it was not a lot.
How often did you speak or text with the Attorney General? This is during the investigation.
I wouldn't. When I was special counsel or prior to that?
Special counsel, sir.
I don't know how many times I texted with him.
Right. Well, according to now public records, Barr scheduled at least 18 meetings or calls with you between 2019 March and October 2019. And you and he text messages with each other frequently, didn't you? Text messages.
Yeah, I was appointed as special counsel in October. So before that, there were probably any number of text messages. After that, I don't know.
Here are some examples. On August 31, 2019, he sent you a message that said, "John strongly suggests that you," a lot of interesting things. On February 6, 2020, you text him, "Sir, just emerging from a skiff. Are you open to a call earlier this morning?" On February 14, 2020, Barr texts you, call me when you get a chance. On March 19, 2020, Barr texts, can I call you later? And you responded, most certainly. On March 27, 2020, you sent him the best phone number for you all during the time of being special counsel. And here's an interesting one. On September 24, 2019, the day that the Speaker Pelosi announced a formal impeachment inquiry into President Trump, Attorney General Barr texts you, call me ASAP, and later that day you text back. Do you have a minute for a quick call, Durham? What was the purpose of this call, Mr. Durham? Were you discussing the impeachment inquiry?
I never had any conversation with Attorney General Barr about the impeachment inquiry.
Mr. Durham, this is an awful lot of direct interactions with the Attorney General for imposed, supposedly independent counsel prosecutor. During these messages that sound to you like appropriate interactions, do they sound like appropriate interactions between an Attorney General and a prosecutor investigating the administration?
Sure. Before I was appointed special counsel, I worked for the Attorney General of the United States. That's who
But you
supervised
subsequently
me.
became special counsel. I know that.
Right.
You subsequently became. Not only did you interact with the Attorney General frequently, you also regularly engaged with one of his top deputies, Seth Ducharme. What was your relationship with Mr. Ducharme?
Seth Ducharme had been an assistant United States attorney in the Eastern District of New York. He works with one of my sons, who are friends. And he, at the time, was working in the Office of the Attorney General.
It seems that rather than having an independent investigation, there was a lot of interaction between the Attorney General and the Special Prosecutor, which shows that
generous with the time.
the Attorney General was actively directing your work.
The gentlelady yields back. I think this is amazing, Mr. Durham. You had 8 text messages with the Attorney General of the United States in 11 months time period. That's amazing. I can't believe that.
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry. Whose time is that you were speaking of?
That was that time that was yielded to me earlier that I yielded back, I think.
That's a select Mr. Chairman, that is absolutely inappropriate.
I was just pointing out something that I think is so
Mr. Chairman, that is not appropriate.
And we will go to Mr. Klein for 5 minutes. The gentleman from Virginia, is recognized.
Final words after this.
You're listening to Left, Right, and Center, your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
Well, folks, there you have it. You have 1 hour of the two-tier justice system. You have the legal justice system, and then you have the Gang of 8 justice system. You have proper inquiries and improper inquiries. You have one narrative that is inappropriate, and then you also have a narrative that speaks the truth. The truth is this, and the narrative is this. Apples and oranges. You have over here to your left the democratic process and the rule of law that is showing through investigations that you have a president's son who once was on drugs, who purchased a firearm under false pretense, and the investigation and the result of that investigation states that there's nothing else going on here. The curtain has been opened. Then you have the right, the Gang of 8 on the right, who is actually saying, well, my orange president over here has classified documents. And oh, by the way, yes, he did get on Fox News and he did have an interview with Brett Baier and threw himself up under the bus, making it easy for Jack Smith to actually get a conviction. I don't care how long it takes for them to take their asses into court. But Jack Smith and his team will get a conviction. Not to mention the January 6th, not to mention the Georgia situation, not to mention the other slew of things that are happening out there for their orange, two-time, indicted, impeached, disgraced loser of a president. Then you have people like Ron DeSantis, who is still misusing the term woke in the wrong vernacular. And remember what I said, Floridians. He basically is saying that we don't care what you say or do. We're going to do what the fuck we want to do to you, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. This is democracy at its finest. 2024 is coming up. We need a clean slate. See, they want to censor Adam Schiff. You got people running their mouth about different things that, first of all, when you got people like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're not even educated enough, and they don't even have the educational background to hold a finger to an Adam Schiff or a Jamie Raskins of the world, whether it's in the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. They just don't. The bottom line is this: apples and oranges, and it's only held up by the Gang of Eight. Until next week, knuckleheads.
You've been listening to Right, Left, and Center. Our passion is to talk about today's news, politics, the environment, culture, and anything else that helps shape the news in America. Our 2022 season was so strong, we had to come back and smack 2023 right in the mouth. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And continue to listen on iHeartRadio, Spotify, or anywhere you download your podcasts. See you next time on Right, Left, and Center.